and England. The town trust, I have to say, have also been very generous to us.
Yes.
They, of course, gave us a substantial grant to build the dressing rooms in the number one dressing room, which and the mezzanine up the top, and convert the old kitchen into two other dressing rooms.
Yes.
And that was entirely town trust money.
Wow.
And they've been very, very supportive.
It is the region's premier theatre, isn't it? You see, that's I suppose, it's the town, for the town trust, this is exactly on mission, isn't it? A community theatre from scratch.
Well, absolutely. I mean, obviously they run the village hall. No, they run the civic hall or playhouse or whatever it's called these days. So they've got two bows, but we've got a very good relationship with them.
And did they help with the readers? Did they help with the bar redevelopment just recently?
No, that we did. Well, of course, that was pre-COVID.
Yes,
we did that out of our own money.
Wow.
The funds we built up, which was what we got it for. That's why we do it. We have to plough everything back we make into the theatre itself. And the bar was one of the things we ploughed it into. I can't say
Did you commit to that project just as COVID hit?
We committed to it in the autumn, before they'd invented COVID. and so it was done. It was finished in January 2020.
So just in time.
Or not just in time, frankly.
Well,
because if we hadn't done it, life would have been much easier.
But you would be expected. Your plans would presumably have been predicated on the assumption that you would be getting income upon its completion.
Of course, absolutely. And it was important that we had a bar. It was a big step because that room it is still the whole lot's owned by the URC, but that room doesn't form part of our main annual lease.
Okay.
So every time we do a show and the bar is open, we pay a rent for it.
Oh, right.
Fine. Of course, we would like that to happen, but it doesn't matter that much.
But what a beautiful design it is, and that whole development of that bar area is gorgeous, isn't it?
It's straight out of the other place, really. That's where it's come from.
Oh, has it? Right.
That's where the ideas come from.
Yeah.
And mostly these days, Graham, I don't tend to get involved in what's going on. I just pay for it. And I just say to everybody, when you do it, you run it. No, send me the bill, and that's easier. Because I've run out of ideas, so they've got some good people with good ideas there.
They really are, aren't they? Roger Ganner, you could name lots of people. Roger Ganner,
you can name lots of people.
Key in this, hasn't it?
Yeah. And it's vital that we continue to get new people in with new ideas.
Yes,
because you do run out of ideas. I can't think of anything else to do.
Yes.
But I mean, the big thing we really need to do. I'll go on about this a lot. We've been turning the lighting into an all LED system.
Okay.
But that's going to take some time. And we're just starting a cinema.
Yes.
And in fact, the screen should go up probably next week or the week after.
Oh, is it really?
And the projector maybe a couple of weeks later. I think the idea is the target is the middle of July. That we'll start showing community films.
We really need a 4-hour podcast here. I may have to do a part 2, but to talk about the cinema a bit. By the time this goes out, which I guess, where are we now? Mid-June. I'll put this out probably in July. But so that will have had its opening, won't it?
It should have had its first outing if everything goes to plan. There will be and is formed a committee to run it and decide what films we want. The first idea is we'll show 2 films morning and afternoon. And we will begin to get feedback from the audiences about what they want. I mean, the raison d'etre for the theatre cinema is because the picture house closed.
Of course.
And that's a vaguely, that was a community theatre.
And it was really, it was the only arts house type cinema, wasn't it, in the whole Stratford area and whole region?
Absolutely. So we're not going to show first screening films. Of course, we're not going to do James Bond. We might do Doctor No would be good, but so we're going to try and perhaps a Battleship Pumpkin, which is the one I'd like to see done in black and white. But anyway, the idea is, yes, we'll find out what audiences want to watch.
That's fantastic,
and when they want to watch them, because it's for them, not us.
Yes. Yeah.
And of course, we'd like to make a bit of money or break even, and we'll sell a pint or two or a glass of wine, and that's where we are. So yes, I'm very encouraged about this stuff.
So there's going to be a screen and so on. Does this mean
there is a screen? It's an automatic electric drop down screen,
right?
Which is the far end of the theatre where the dock is.
Right.
It's 4 metre by 2 metre. I think it's quite a big one. Takes up a lot of the area.
So we're going back to end on with the seating, are we? In the round is
this is the big conversation, which probably will take another hour to have.
Yeah, I did think so. Yes, I wondered.
Yeah. So this is the conversation we're having at the moment. I mean, in the round, a lot of people on the board and it was very COVID friendly. That's why we really went to it in the first place.
Yeah.
It will cost us a lot of money to put the raking back again. But we were working out how, only last week, how we can get as many people in the round, because it will still be in the round by the end of this year. How many people we can get in with seats on the floor and that sort of stuff, which is how it will be done in the first place. And we can get quite a lot of people in there, so that people aren't having to sort of watch like that and get bag necks by the end of it.
Yes.
So, but it'll start in the round.
Yeah.
When it comes front on again, Graham, I don't know. I mean,
because there are lots of reasons. There are lots of reasons to go for end on, aren't there? But for example, the Bear Pit's capacity to produce the most beautiful sets, is profound, isn't it? You know, pretty much every set that you have had there as Bear Pit shows have been extraordinary.
They have. I think it's a matter of who's available to do these sets. I think what we're currently working on is to make sure that we can do it in the thrust much better. And of course, the RSC put some half decent sets on in the thrust. And so we're probably going to change the seating arrangement so we can get more people in and more space at that end, the screen end, the dock end, so that for the stage itself. A lot of conversations to be had, and there's quite a lot of intricate things to be dealt with, like where the tech desk is, because that's got to go somewhere else or be raised, or
of course, yes.
Where it is, or you use projectors and cameras and television screens and all that sort of business.
Yes.
So that has to be dealt with. I like it in the round, I have to say. I like acting in the round, but I like it the other way. So I don't know, but how we'll end up, Graham, I don't know. But whatever it is will be right, and whatever it is should be what our community wants most. Now, there are some groups who are not as fond of it in the round as others, which is fair. There are others who don't like it quite so much in the front on and like it in the round.
It's both, isn't it? Both have their own magic, don't they?
Yes, of course they do. Of course they do. And as I said, at the moment, while we're still a bit COVID, the round is right, I think. It's much safer. It's much easier to.
And audiences are still, I suspect audiences are still a little bit nervous of the.
They are. They're undoubtedly nervous, which is why I think it's quite nice. People seem very happy to be able to find their own seat.
Yes.
I mean, yes, unreserved seating is a problem, because we sometimes just don't know how many people have turned up out of the number of people who should turn up, because we can't say, well, D, 3 and 4 are empty and they should be full. Therefore, are we waiting for D and 3 and 4, or do we just go up? Which was what happened in the front on. So that has presented a problem. But the audiences really do seem to be keen on finding their own seats. And I think part of that.
Just on that detail, I think that's really interesting. This a little detail of how well the theatre operates, and how one of the many reasons it's so well loved is that you won't, when it was reserved seating, the front of house manager would not let the show go up until we knew everybody was accounted for.
Well,
within reason.
Yes, I mean, within reason. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we'll probably wait 5 minutes and maybe 10. And I can't remember any RSC show that I've been in has gone up on time.
Exactly.
But we can't wait forever. Of course, we can't wait forever. And in any performance at any theatre, not everybody's going to turn up. That's the way it happens.
No. But
it was a way of knowing that there should be somebody in D3 and 4, and they haven't turned up. At the moment, we can't do that. So that's another thing. It's a minor thing, but it's sort of quite helpful, and it also stops people, coming in 5 minutes after it started and tripping over in the dark and all this sort of business. So anyway, that's that. But all these things have got to be sorted, and they will be sorted. But it's been, for the country, it's been difficult. But you know as better than I do, because you were poorly. You were very poorly. And, everybody's still very nervous. And ticket sales for Neville's Island are all right, but people are not buying tickets early so much as they used to. I mean, they didn't do that before COVID. People were buying tickets much later. But since COVID, they seem to be buying tickets even later still. Maybe turning up today.
Just on that point, and I think my machine will at some point, it makes it sound like I'm 149 soon, but at some point the Zoom thing will say you've got 5 minutes.
Yes, Mr. Zoom will say yes.
Yes, but we must have another podcast at another time, because but let's stay with this, because I want to get into your performance things as well, the things you've done on stage at Bear Pit and so on. But for the moment, let's stay with the Bear Pit itself, because it is the most amazing and magical story its whole life.
Yeah.
But going back, when you decided to open, when we were able to open after COVID, which began with Confusions, which was bound to be a big, but true to not bound to be a big seller, but it was a big seller, wasn't it? But then you did Blink, which was bound not to be a good seller.
Well, I think, the other. That's not. I'm glad to say that is not chronologically right, because I can't remember the times earlier on. But we started off, and I think I'm right in saying we started off with deck chairs.
Yes.
And then
absurd person singular.
Then absurd person singular.
Yes, that's right.
And then Blink, which was, yes, that was never going to sell. And we really are trying to find shows that will sell now to build our resources up again. But I think Steve Farr was keen to do Blink, and it's always helpful if somebody really wants to direct something, let them get on with it.
But it does show how the fact that Blink was put on does show that there is a massive following for the Bear Pit.
Yeah.
And also how the Bear Pit is committed to, a range.
Yeah. Well, I think it is. I mean, Blink made money.
Did it really?
But one of the things one of the big benefits of the round is that you haven't got big expensive sets. Although we rightly say they were great expensive sets, but they were mostly expensive.
Yeah.
And in the round, you haven't got that. You have to have much more imagination, which you know from being in the second time around Confusions. And Absurd Person Singular did very, very well. And Confusions did pretty well. 8 Board always does well. I think
with Absurd, though, the set for that was pretty elaborate. And,
well, yes, but it has to say we got most of it. We got or could borrow most of it. So it wasn't that expensive. But it put bums on seats, which is the main thing. I don't mind it costing a lot as long as we take some money in.
Yeah.
And we don't want to, of course, we don't lose on a show, but it's absolutely right that we put on shows that are different and more varied. And I think that's what David's trying to do at the moment.
Yes.
With an eye to the fact that it's helpful if we can make some money to plough back into.
Overall, over the course of a season.
So that again.
Over the course of a season,
yes.
I mean, you would hope that every show would at least wash its own face, but
very few shows, and I can't actually remember one. I'd have to look back. I don't think any show has ever lost money.
Good Lord, that's worth taking a pause over for a second. So since 2008, so we're looking at what, 13, 14 years?
Well, no, call it 2012. That's where we've been at Bear Pit. In the theatre itself.
Okay, so, righto.
Yeah, I don't think I can't remember. I've got it all down somewhere, but I can't think of any show that's actually lost money.
Good heavens above! In this day and age, that is incredible, isn't it?
Well, I mean, that's actually cost of show. It doesn't necessarily take in the main heat, light, main lease and all that sort of business, but as a standalone thing, which is what I do, as a standalone item, they all have wiped their feet if nothing else, and some of them have done very well. Nicely.
And do the community and visiting companies do they help with? To a degree, with the overall financial health of the enterprise?
Absolutely, because they rent it. So every time a group comes, certainly every time a group comes for a week, it's it's £1,000 or £1,000 plus.
Right.
And we can't do it for less, but they all contribute. That's what it's for. That's our income.
And that commitment to community. You talked about Colin there, but his specific brief is the community. But the theatre's always had this, the commitment to the vet. I don't know whether you consciously think about these things, but one always thinks that it seems to be that there is a very wide range of community and visiting groups who get involved, from established local groups through to one-off performances by very big names and people with varying degrees of ability, physical ability and so on, and age. And we haven't actually. We are there for the community. We have a charity status, and one of the aims and purposes of the charity status is to create a theatre, affordable theatre for the people of Stratford, which encourages art and performing art mainly. And so we have to do that. I think we've ever sort of thought quite deeply that how do we help the community, apart from providing them with a theatre to either use or watch. And one of the main purposes of the Bear Pit was to produce, which people have tried lots of times, create a theatre which is affordable for the groups of Stratford-on-Avon, affordable, accessible of Stratford-on-Avon. So that, yes, you're out saying that is a community thing. Colin is getting more and more involved in the community itself, individuals in the community. And which, he's absolutely right, he does, and we do. And that's another conversation which you probably need to have with him rather than me. Oh, I definitely will actually. No, it's a really good tip because I mean, Colin's personal and his theatrical history is absolutely fascinating. But before we finish, let's move on to one big topic with respect to the Bear Pit, which I know a lot of people talk about, and I talked about it with Pam actually when she did one of these, which is to what do you put one of the massively impressive things about the Bear Pit is the degree to which everybody mucks in.
Yep.
And as with every enterprise, I'm sure, because Belle has a very significant role in coordinating the volunteers, doesn't she? And so on.
Yep.
And you can't ever have enough volunteers, but there always seem to be people who will step forward. And the history of it has been, there aren't many people who are paid to work at the Bear Pit. But so it is almost all volunteer. How do you think that's kept going?
It's now kept going because Belinda obviously sends out a call for helpers, and if nobody helps, she rings them up and badgers them into doing it. But I think people enjoy it. People do find and have found, like you kindly enough say, that it's quite fun. That it's quite fun being working in a theatre. Meeting people, serving on a bar, seeing the show, and I think that we need to keep it that way. And I think we have sort of achieved now what we set out to do.
Right.
That's create the theatre. What are the next step? Is where would it go from there? How do we expand it?
Wow.
Do we expand it? Do we say this is where we've got to? That's fine, or do we? I don't know. Do we buy the church? Do we, buy the RSC? Do we whatever? What do we need to do?
Yeah.
Because really and truly, things don't necessarily stand still totally, and you have to keep, as you rightly say now. We need to keep people interested, and people continue to be interested and will continue to be interested. But the cinema is, I think, a lovely idea.
Isn't it? Isn't it
something
just
different?
Yes,
it's something different. And how do we use the space? The space, like a lot of space, is empty most of the time.
Yes. Yeah.
The bar is empty most of the time.
Yes.
Although I think Pam's doing some Sunday nights in August, or sometimes in August, when we're going to open the bar and send out a Billy Do to the good people of Stratford, say the Bear Pit bar's open, come and have a drink.
Yeah.
And the beer's cheaper there than it is anywhere else.
Because it's perfectly situated, isn't it? It's right.
And of course, it is.
Couldn't be better. Parking's there and all the rest of it.
That's right. You can park. And so apart from Fridays and Saturdays, probably it's so easy to access. But we're very lucky. We're fantastically lucky, Graham.
Well, it's luck, but it's also drive and personality and so on. Because the actual infrastructure, the kind of administrative infrastructure of the Bear Pit is, well, I'm suspecting, pretty small. People who, as you say, have dug their hands in their pockets. It's a tight band of very committed people who've actually put their cash on the line.
Yeah,
but there isn't a vast committee structure, or you're not. One isn't having to. We have this kind of big event we used to have this big launch event at the beginning of every season.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's not much. It's about network and organization without a. I know David's the leader and so on, but I bet if you said to most people who are involved in the Bear Pit, could you name the people on the board? Wouldn't get them all. So it's very much kind of, it's networks and talk and conversation. I know what it is. This is my view anyway. It's relationships.
Yes. We're always keen to have more people on the board and more people to come forward. But everybody, fun enough, we think, and in fact, everybody who thinks they want to come onto board want a specific job. And so it's nice to have people who have particular talents. And Roger has got fantastic talent for organising and dealing with the structure of the things.
Yes.
Pam is obvious. Well, Pam isn't on the board any longer, but Pam was brilliant at administration as well as being a rather trained actress. So that's helpful.
She still is, isn't she? She's still, I mean, although not on the board, she's still playing a leading role, isn't she?
She is. Whether she's doing that willingly or not, I don't know. But she's still very much involved in the thing, and she's very keen to see it move on. You know, she came away to a certain extent because, like me, she'd been on it since 2008. But after a bit, you think that we need some new people, and we do begin to need new people, and we're beginning to look hard at how we structure the thing, because it's right that we do, and but make sure all the jobs are covered. And there are a lot of jobs to do. There are small jobs, running the bar, the money, making sure the till's got some money in it, making sure the cash machines work, making sure the stage works, making sure the lights all work, buying new bulbs. Yeah, it's never stop really.
David shared some thoughts a while ago, didn't he, about how I remember him saying during Confusions, I think, or right at the beginning of Confusions, how and it's a fairly obvious thing to say, but nevertheless, we needed reminding that the things like the lights and lighting and technician involvement in that and securing of props. You see, Jill Butler, for example, was an absolute genius in that respect. Yeah. And I know I began to rely on her.
Yeah.
And so on. But again, you can't force people to do these things. You can't force people to work the lights. And Richard has, you know, and JD and Richard are truly gifted at that, but we can't rely on them forever, you know, for everything, as it were.
No, we can't. And we are trying to make sure, beginning to the process of them training other people to do it. And that's something I'm pressing very hard at the moment. I've got Paul Greenwood coming to do a play reading.
Oh, really?
In July.
Gosh.
He wrote his play. Can't remember. It's a murder thing. And we read it in Marston Green. My brother's one of the readers. That's the only reason I know.
Okay.
So he's bringing them all to the Bear Pit on the 10th of July.
Wow.
And there's some pretty starry actors in it. I mean, you don't know any of them, but you name a program on television, and one of them's been in it. So
I think Malgosia, my friend Malgosia was telling me about this. I think maybe Paul is a neighbour of hers up in Welford.
Possibly. Paul, they live at the top of the hill. They live at the top of the hill.
Yes.
So my brother's doing it. Mark Carey's doing it.
Wow.
Sonny Ormond's doing it. A lot of people. And it's a rehearsed reading this time. So they come into the Bear Pit. And I'm going to be duty manager and do the lights. And I hadn't got a clue until last Friday how to turn the lights on.
That is it.
I knew 5 years ago when we got the old box, I could do that. But I didn't know how to use the current new system. Well, I do now because I forced David Mears to tell me how to do it. And as long as you turn the switches on A, B, and C in that order and turn them off C, B, A, we're all right. So I can now turn the lights on. I can't do anything else with them, but I can make the place bright.
But that's where I think it's about this notion of relationship is so important. Relationship rather than structure, because there are some groups will say, well, if you're going to act on the stage, you will do at least 2 backstage jobs. Yep. But we don't do it like that, do we? We kind of rely on people assuming that would be a gracious thing to do.
Yes, we do. But Belinda's getting a bit more forceful in this, that we really, if you want to act, we really do expect you to do a bit in front of house or something like that. Because if you don't, and nobody does, you ain't going to act.
Yes. Yes.
Because
Yes.
we could do the plays. You could rehearse till the cows come home.
But Belle's got a really good technique at the moment with the volunteer sheets, hasn't she? Where they're it's all sent out and you can see who's volunteering and when, and it's not pressure as such. It's just kind of being open about the fact that if we don't do the bar, there ain't no theatre.
No, absolutely. So of course we know there are some actors who won't do it, which is a shame. But we then have to, you take. As I've said many times before, if you're doing auditions or running auditions and you've got two people in for the same part who are equally as good as each other, and one of them does a station on the bar every show and the other one never turns up at all, who are you going to pick? And so I think it's quite important that people do. Well, for us, it's important, and for them, it's important.
And yet, let's finish on this up note, I think, for now. But if you don't mind, I would like to do another one with you about you on the stage, because
well, I'll talk to my agent about that. That's fine.
Yeah, well, if you could, yes, if you could. I've never known a theatre which is so lovely to work in all my years,
Well, I'm very pleased to hear that, Graham, because it is important. I think it's important. It's lovely for people to say it.
Terribly important. There's no notion of hierarchy, but there's people in charge. Wherever you go in that theatre, if you're doing a kind of volunteering job and so on, or working backstage or whatever, it's all volunteering, but you know what I mean. If you're not on stage, you feel as important as if you were playing a lead role on the stage.
Yeah, and
See, think of Phil Gray is a perfect example of this, isn't it, Phil? Because his ability to make everybody feel special and warm. I know this was part of his work history, isn't it? He used to be involved in this kind of front of house work. But all the duty managers and so on make the volunteers feel welcome and special, and and that's true for the backstage too. That when Pam does backstage and so on, everybody does backstage, everyone is made to feel welcome and part of it. There's no cliques, there's no hierarchy, there's no sniffiness. Very generous and warm environment. And I think it's almost impossible to say how that is the case, isn't it, really?
Yes, I think it is. I mean, certainly as far as the theatre group is concerned. One of the things we haven't got, and people may criticise us, is that we don't have members, as it were. But because one of the things I think that does is not to create cliques.
Yes.
Because every time you do a play, it's usually a different director, a different cast, and they've come from doing something at the Loft or the Criterion, or and people aren't cliquey or
no.
Occasionally you'll get one who's a bit up something, but it's very, very rare.
Human nature. We have associate artists, don't we? If one is asked to be an associate artist, it's a real thrill and pleasure. But you don't feel, well, now I'm a member of this theatre. You feel that is another way to contribute, really, isn't it? This is so important about the no membership thing. There are no fees that one has to pay.
No.
You don't, and therefore, I wonder if that gives the theatre a freedom, almost.
Well, possibly. Yes, it probably. I mean, it certainly gives is a selling point. You don't have to pay for it. So, which I like. I think that means people come and want to come.
Yes.
Which is more to the point, Graham. We want them to come both to act and to run the bar and to make backstage things and move cups about the place.
That's right. And nobody has to. Nobody has to. Of course, people come along because they not out of sort of, I suppose I better support it.
Yeah.
The quality is so high. God, I sound like a real fan, but I am. The quality of theatre is so high. That is what keeps pulling, and the quality of the theatre yes, it sounds pretentious, but it's true. The quality of the theatre experience is so high.
Well, I hope it is. Yeah.
From greeting people to sitting in your seat and then watching the theatre and the exit. We keep the bar on after the show is over and so on. But and there's a very, very there's a hunger for good theatre in this town, despite the fact that we got the RSC on our doorstep.
Yes, I think there is a hunger for good theatre. There's a hunger for theatre that isn't Shakespeare. Yeah. There's a hunger for theatre that you haven't got to pay 36, 46, 56, 66 quid to go and watch, that we can do quite nicely for £12. And it's what people often do say, and I'm always very pleased when they say, and I'm humble when they say, we've had a lovely evening.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it isn't, you rightly say, it's not just a play. It's because we've got a nice bar and everybody's quite nice and you can get to the loo and it's not a scrum. So, yeah, it's grown like that without anybody trying, Graham, I think.
Now, that is a really good note to finish on just now, because I think that, it's grown without anybody really trying. And yet, and it's your modesty again, which is a very attractive thing in a person, of course, but a podcast such as this ought to shine light where it doesn't ordinarily get shone. But people like yourself, David, and Dal, and all those people we've mentioned do try an extraordinarily hard to make it happen.
We work very hard, and perhaps because we work hard, it is as it is. But I don't think we sort of say we want to make this a pleasant experience. It is a pleasant experience because I suppose we work hard, and you put the right infrastructure in. I don't know. I'm at the wrong end of it to say that.
And you work hard at relationships. I'm beginning more and more as a result of this conversation to believe that's the case. Everybody who turns up to do any kind of job at the Bear Pit is made to feel, not in a kind of, lovey-dovey type way, but incredibly valued and part of it. And no matter what you do, doesn't matter what you do.
Absolutely right. We're delighted to see you.
Really delighted.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, let's take a pause there for the moment, David. But let's do another one, later this year, and talk about
whatever. It's acting. Very kind of you to suggest it would be worth it.
Because I love these podcasts because it does, certainly for myself, I almost forget I'm recording sometimes because I learned so much about things I didn't know. I didn't, for example, know about your huge, that you'd done 8 shows at the RSC. But I mean, the experience that people have is just phenomenal, And actually, I know it's a horrible thing to say, but more experience has been gained by most of us in this world than if we had become professional. You probably wouldn't have had this breadth.
Yeah. I've been very lucky. I've done a lot of things, probably most of them not very well, but I've been very lucky and done a lot of things, and that's great.
Yeah. And so what's your final, let's leave the final word to you, David. What the future of the Bear Pit has turned out to be, because of all the things we've said, where we are now is pretty darn good, and I would assume you're very optimistic about the next months.
I'm extremely, absolutely. I'm extremely optimistic, and we're beginning to get plans together, and that's good because as you well know, it hasn't been easy to make plans. It's been easy to make plans. Actually, make them work or actually make them happen hasn't been too easy. So yes, it's very exciting. And it will long continue, and long will it continue. And there's a lot of good irons in a lot of good fires, and a lot of people with some very good ideas. And how long they will continue to be there, we don't know. How long it'll take to bring them to the surface, we don't know. But it's not through lack of trying, and it's not through lack of ideas.
No. It's love of things. So, well, on behalf of, thank you for your service, David. Thank you for your
no trouble. Thank you for asking.
And we'll talk again on the podcast soon, but I know we'll talk again, as it were, normally.
Yes.
but there
on the stage with a bit of luck.
On the stage, yes, indeed so, yes. Right.
Okay.
Thank you, David. Thank you, David.
Take care. Happy days.
Where's stop recording? There it is.